Welcome to Small Practice Support Information Session number 77. In this recording, Larry Fenlon, Senior Counsel, talks to Justin Purcell about tomorrow's lawyer.
So you're all very welcome to this Small Practice Information Session 77, amazingly. And I'm joined today by Larry Fenlon, who's Senior Counsel with Lehman Solicitors, and you're Head of Litigation there, and then you're a founder of LexTech. So you're very welcome, Lawrence, to join us today to talk to us essentially about the future, really, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. I suppose, look, I think sole practitioners, small practices seem to think that this isn't part of their world, and that everything is too expensive or might be technologically very deep knowledge is required. It's not. I mean, this is for everybody, and really what the purpose of today, Justin, is to democratize that information so that everyone can feel part of that future. Because at the heart of it is, I think we all accept that doing nothing is not an option in terms of adapting for the future. And if we don't adapt, then, the real issue for, I think, practitioners is that incomes will decline, profit will decline. And, we all have families to look after and livelihoods to protect. So this is really a form of future-proof in your business, the way I see it.
Yeah. And so the pandemic itself has brought up the huge opportunities or changes in work practices really around this digitalization that's happening in all industries throughout the world. But particularly, it seems to have aligned itself with the legal sector more recently. It's been slow to adopt. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think you look at the courts, for instance. I mean, there wasn't bloody Wi-Fi in there for years, and it's relatively very recently. And now we have, remote hearings. And tell me one practitioner who doesn't think that's a good idea saves all the time and travel and the efficiencies that delivers. The other thing I think, Justin, is the pandemic has brought accessibility to clients. I mean, there was once upon a time this need to, for a consultation with a barrister and an expert, and the client might take 2 weeks to organise, and then everyone had to make all their travel arrangements around that. Some people would travel for hours to get there. Now you literally have, and so I had a client there earlier on. He said, "Can I have an urgent call today?" Yeah, 5:30. There you go. Here's the link, and off you go. And it's become very accessible. That's to be welcomed, I think. I mean, closer client contact. I mean, you can't beat press in the flesh. I'm not trying to disrupt, human values here. I am saying that actually there's some advantages, and that's a couple of them. I mean, the other thing is, we're seeing, when the pandemic arrived, certainly physical files really became redundant because you couldn't have team members all working on the one file. So physical files meant someone had to take the physical file home, and if you had team members working on it, they couldn't see it. So you had to digitize really if you had a team environment. That's a great thing. And tell me one practitioner who misses delving through their cabinet for the missing document and having to send an email or a memo to everyone in the office, and all the time that's wasted on that. So I think, what's happened on our own desk is pretty interesting. We all got home kits to work with. The physical telephones got removed from our desk. Everything now is through Teams. All of our calls now are via our computer or our phone on Teams. And so the physical handset on your desk is now another part of that redundancy. So there's shifts happening, and it's not all dramatic, and big stuff. It's sort of incremental, is the way to describe it.
Yeah, there's a query there, and we might as well take it. If you have around data rooms for small practice, have you seen usage around them, and what types of technology?
Absolutely, yeah. So there's big hand. There's a huge amount of variety of technology around it. I mean, there's not a corporate transaction now that doesn't have an online data room. I mean, the idea of let me even talk to you about discovery, right? Like physical discoveries is the thing of the past. The idea of getting a physical box from your client. Now what we say is, if you have a physical box, we're going to firstly digitize that.
Yes.
Or you digitize it one way or the other. And the whole thing is removing paper from the system. And that brings feng shui in the office. It brings, you're sweating your square foot a lot better. It's a much nicer work environment, a much better team and mobile work environment. But data rooms are very much the norm now. They're just, there's so many different platforms out there. It is, the technology committee, the Law Society, are probably the best place to advise there, but there's a plethora out there.
So just moving on about the pandemic, etc. You did make a comment about the Legal Services Authority have different terms of reference, and they're sort of trying to bring more change onto the profession in this area. Yeah. Is there anything that we really should know about in this area, or?
I see the LSA having 5 key goals here. One of them is the introduction of the licensed conveyancer. We've seen the start of that process now. And make no mistake, this is not just some recommendation to government. It's coming to a town near you. What's the licensed conveyancer mean? They mean someone who costs less and charges less. And this is all about the consumer and drive it down legal cost. So the LSRA brings what I call these external regulatory factors. They're the new regulator, but they're also the reformer. Okay, and don't forget, this all comes about post the Troika and the reform and the view that Ireland's legal costs are they're uncompetitive, too high, and adding too much cost to business. So the mantra here is look after consumer and small business by reducing these costs, such as legal costs. So the licensed conveyancers one, the merger of the professions, look, in theory, great. In practice, I don't really know how much of that really makes a difference. But the liberalisation of legal education is another piece. What do we have? At the last count, about 11,500, 11,800 solicitors. I've made that comparison in the article of the ratio of citizens to solicitors in the States. I think it's at 216, and ours is it's not too far off that. It's 1 to, I think, 400 or something like that. But I think, the liberalisation of legal education is to stop this bottleneck and black hole. More solicitors, more competition, lower cost. And all of this we have to take on board. We can't stick our head in the sand. So, that they're sort of key events that are coming relatively soon. And, we've all been a part of that discussion within our profession, where we go, do you hear how much your man's offering to do a conveyance? And it seems every year the cost goes lower and lower and lower. And that's what competition is there designed to do, is to bring down prices. And then, and how are we coping with that?
So one other area that's kind of caught my eye was this alternative business structures. This is still under the Legal Services Authority. This alternative business structures are multidisciplinary practices or teaming up with other professional services firms. How do you see that?
Yeah, I think in I think in the provincial towns, I think you really see value being added here. It's basically the supermarket of the profession. So I go into the building, there's an accountant who refers me work, there's the architect, there's the engineer, there's the estate agent, and there's the lawyer. You can see where the symmetries lie, and you might brand under a common branding, which could be very effective. The other thing I think you'll do in those situations is you'll minimize your cost. You might have one secretary amongst 5 different professions. You might have one roof over one building, which reduces your rent. And of course, there's the synergies that come from that professional ecosystem where work is referred to, which you can see it's a brilliant idea. You've seen EY law starting up. This is not new to Ireland. EY law have been doing this for years abroad. They consider themselves one of the largest global law firms. So you're going to see it at Big Four level, make no mistake of it. Next four probably going to have to compete at that level. And then you're going to see, I think, on a smaller practitioner basis, those professions coming together. Why not?
Yeah, and if you are a small practitioner out there, how should you be thinking about this? Like, it's coming, so how do they embrace it? Can they sit alongside other solicitors, grouped together, or do you see them operating in isolation? Or what steps could they take if they were proactive and embrace it?
Like in France, they have these sort of cabinets, is what they're called, and basically they are a brand name of which a number of practitioners come together and trade under the name. You'll see it in the estate agents quite liberally throughout Ireland, where they operate under their individual names, but then they have the common brand. That's the sort of thing I'd be thinking of, because if I know our profession is going to increasingly get deregulated through alternative business structures, merger of the professions, licensed conveyancers and whatnot, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to change my business model. And that's fundamentally what I think I'll do, because I have to lower my overhead and increase my value. And there, that's the way I'd be thinking, is how do I lower my overhead, my cost base? So I do that by collaborating with others. And how do I increase my reach? Well, maybe if there was 4 or 5 of us who came together, we would advertise a little bit more professionally. And if we got into bed in business with other professions, we could see how those synergies lie, and then adding value. That's the big conundrum for practitioners. How do I add value? So if I'm doing something the same as everyone else, it's a bit like the cattle farmer, like a suckler farmer. They're all raising the same product, and then they give out when the prices aren't what they want. So if we're not doing something different to the rest of the market, we're not adding value, then we can expect what the market is willing to pay for.
Very good. So just moving on to another area, just the whole area of legal tech. And for me, it can be confusing to understand all of the different technologies, how they're described, how they're used, and how they apply to legal services. So in a very quick attempt, could you give us a kind of a rough idea of where the big technical legal changes are happening in legal tech from your experience?
Yeah, I suppose in legal tech, like there's the banal, and then there's the sexier end of things. Okay, on the banal side of things, legal tech, I gave an example of our own telephone systems gone, right? Now, the cost of telephones to analog service versus something like Microsoft Teams is quite significant, okay? And therefore, you have a cleaner desk, you have the same level of communication, but at a much lower cost. I mean, why not? Okay, there's some examples of what's happening. I think we're also seeing, like case management, document management, accounts, everyone's operating under those systems. So that's nothing new there. But I think the move to the cloud is very significant. And what that means is what we used to have here in our own office is, you'd have a room which was air conditioned to host all of your servers, and you were only accumulating more and more servers, and then they had to be serviced, because inevitably there was going to be server failure or the deterioration. And you had all these sort of IT guys who were working around it, who were paying them lots of money, and they actually had no idea what they were doing. They could tell you anything. Like going into a mechanic in a garage and he goes, "Oh, I've got a big problem here." You're none the wiser. So that's now gone. We're pretty much hosted in the cloud for everything, and that's off premises as opposed to on premises data security, and it just means you free up more space, you have less maintenance. And I think we've worked out that we're saving 70 grand a year, right? 70 grand a year, because we've moved all of our data off premises into the cloud, and we don't have this huge IT cost. Now, we might have different size practice to people who are attending this, but you can see pro rata what that might mean for you. So I think these are significant cost savers. I think they should be definitely explored. And then, you're seeing the sexier end of things is AI blockchain, and people sort of goes over their head, and it's a sort of phrase that's misunderstood, not understood. Is it going to make a difference to us? I suppose not really in the short term, I don't think, save and except once the government buys into blockchain for property transactions, that's when it's going to fundamentally shift for us. But so I'd summarize and say, like, it is all about the move to the cloud, and that's where we're at.
If you were giving advice to a smaller practitioner, like, how did you make that move? Was it the partners yourselves sat around and made those decisions, or did you have a legal or an IT person who advised on what third-party systems you should purchase?
Yeah, so one of the important things, we have a director of innovation, if you want, a bit of a lofty title, but basically it's a guy who's got a very strong background in IT, and we'll be guided by him as to where we should be going. And what we did was basically a 3-year plan in most things. One of those headings is infrastructure and IT and systems, and where we should be going. And we had this conversation 3 years ago. She said, like, there's only one way this is going, and that's to the cloud. Like, servers are obsolete. They're as obsolete as the Betamax video recorder in a sense. So, do you want to keep watching, or the CD player? Technology's moved on. So we did a 3-year plan, Justin. That was the answer to that. And then, of course, our own IT providers were not happy with it at all. Our former IT providers, I should say, really dissuaded us because they could see the writings on the walls. Turkey's voted for Christmas. It's like, terrible idea. This is a bad idea, Ted, is basically what they said. And we said, look, well, actually, we disagree. And we like sucked out loads of costs of maintenance And now system failures just don't happen. Like the amount of disruption we used to have because of glitches and gremlins in the system that no one could ever figure out. And when you did, the fingers pointed in each direction. That's all gone now.
Yeah.
So it's a plan.
Are you using one of the major suppliers, or you don't have to like say exactly who or how, or different smaller suppliers that are aggregated?
Yeah, well, so in terms of who we use in the cloud, I mean, there's basically there's major players. I mean, I don't think you have to be a major player yourself to use one of the major players on an off-premises cloud solution. Look, one of the things we do, Justin, is LexTech is there to assist the legal industry increasingly in adapting. Because look, let's call a spade a spade. It's a bit of a luxury to have a director of technology and innovation, but not every practice does, nor can they afford it. So what they need to do is outsource that function. Bring somebody in and say, look, help me out. You've done it elsewhere. How do I do it? Show me the playbook. I'll pay you a few quid and I'll take it from there. And I think that's really what the practitioners are crying out for. Because I think they all see, where we need to go. It's just, where to start?
And is that a solution LexTech offer? Like,
yeah, it is. It's a what we call as legal department consultancy, right? So people say, look, what technology is out in this area, in that area, tell me and what you recommend. Like we do everything from that to moving to the cloud, to automation, to digitization projects. Just advise them on strategy and planning around that space as well. So we feel there's a real gap in the market. And it's not break the bank stuff, but it's sort of a necessary thing.
It just sets you on the right strategic direction from the people who know what they're talking about, or people who know what they're talking about.
Correct. And then we'll point you to suppliers that we think are good. And then, we're not there to, we're there to exactly point you in the right direction, give you a strategic overview, and then you take it from there.
Very good. So just moving on from the legal sort of technology, unless you wanted to point out some other major issues there. Like there is one that's coming up all the time on my desk, is digital signatures. I don't know whether you have anything to offer on that.
Yeah, well, look, digital signatures.
Everyone says it's a great idea, but then where do I use it? And then everyone turns back and says, well, I need a wet signature. So I'm like, well, what?
Well, actually, this is a pet peeve of mine, I have to say. I'm a big fan of digital signatures. Look, how much crap is it taken out of the system in terms of getting stuff signed now? So, but the greatest opposition to digital signatures, Justin, is other practitioners who are skeptical and think it's sorcery and dark arts. So it's not. And the legislation is pretty clear. There's two pieces of legislation around this. And effectively what it says is, look, you can't do it for will, you can't do it for a property transaction, you can't do it for an affidavit, but affidavits in themselves are being phased out to statements of truth, which is no bad thing. And ultimately, you can do it for everything else. So there's no reason why you can't do it for commercial agreements of any sort, but there are certain no-nos that are excluded, but everything else is up for it. Now, it's so simple. It's once I send you a link with via whatever e-signature tool, we use DocuSign. I mean, it's very good. Not a great share to own at the moment. It's sort of plummeting, not favored by the markets, but it's here to stay. But once I send you a link, Justin, like our bank sent us some documentation we had to sign. Like, what would that have been in the past? Bank guy turns up at your office. It's a half an hour chit chat, maybe an hour, and you sign the thing and off you go. Sure, you just get it in a minute now. So you just get a link and then you click on it, and you can do it on your phone or on your laptop or anything. So it's genuinely foolproof, and so it works. But there are certain exclusions, of course. Now, I think they should be phased out in time, but like witnessing, the real problem around digital signatures is witnessing, okay? Where you have to have someone witness your signature, and effectively, they have to be in the same room with you, practically speaking, if they're going to witness it. They can't be in some other place. They can't be on a hammock in the Bahamas witnessing your signature. They have to be in the same room. And then the timing of that witness signature is actually quite important in terms of almost seconds to minutes sort of stuff. Okay, so they're just some practical hurdles, but look, it's there to be embraced. It all fits in with a sort of digitized business model.
Yeah, and really companies need to start digitizing their practices by starting to scan in the paper and get rid of the paper as a first step.
Yeah, like that's stuff, again, that we help businesses do. And look, if I am a practitioner and I'm staring at 15 cabinets as I speak in this talk with you, Justin, like, oh, they're God, like, give me another one. I'm not going to do that. you outsource that sort of stuff. That's effectively what you do. And I think you take a year zero policy and you say, look, whatever stuff is dead and archived, get it off site. Whatever is live, we're going to digitize that. And then we're going to have a point in time after which we don't open up any physical files. Now, there is a certain exceptions to that. So for instance, litigation, proofs, pleadings still have to be. So we would maintain files for those simply because we have to. And title and, issues like that, wills would have to be kept physically, but the other stuff just doesn't. So it just means whatever files you do keep are a lot thinner and you just don't need as many cabinets. So yeah, a year zero policy, outsource the function because you're not going to do it yourself. You're never going to have time to do it yourself. Get someone else to do the dirty work for you and cull your dead files and keep your live files.
Very good. Quick question there from Michael. Case management, can you keep your case management as part of LexTech? I don't think you're giving strategic advice. It's not.
Yeah, we don't do. So we don't provide you with a case management system. What we tell you is what's out in the market, what's good and what's not, and why it's good and what's not. So you might be thinking, I now need to move to a case management system. If you're simply on a word-based system, which a lot of practitioners would be, and you want to move to something a little bit more sophisticated, what we'll tell you is what's out in the market. We don't build the solution unless you really want us to, but I think that would be a good spend of money. And we'll give you the choice and a recommendation in terms of case management. So any other advice we give you around technology doesn't impinge on whatever existing case management system you're using.
Yeah, so just following on from that, I'll take the questions as they come. Do you mean, do you mean outsource the digitization of the files now? Outsource to who? What about confidentiality? I'll let you clarify that. Okay,
now that's a good question, right? So you would effectively outsource it to someone like us, to LexTech, and what LexTech will then do is we'll execute a confidentiality agreement with you, no different to any sort of business sensitivity. As a solicitor, we're very live to that. It's not like, so given the volume involved, concern of a practitioner might be, well, they see something quite sensitive as they're scanning one by one. I mean, this is bulk scanning stuff. So the key is to get the documents in a digitized, readable format. So there's one thing scanning it and not being able to even search or interrogate the document. What you want to be able to do, like this is the ideal, is to get to a point where you can scan a document and then interrogate it by even just a singular word or phrase. So yeah, confidentiality agreements look after that. Bulk outsource to us, we'll get it done, and it's done in a matter of days if necessary. But it's usually done in batches. That's the way we would recommend
it. The key learning there is it's not just lobbing it into the photocopier and scanning it in, because then that won't be interrogatable. So
no, but also, I mean, the volume involved is you just need something a little bit more bulky and industrial to get through it. Okay. So, it has to be an outsourced thing, because you can't insource that. Who's got the resources to do that?
Quick question there. Somebody's saying they're country practice and they want to have the physical file for the psychology of the client, wants to see the physical file.
Well, I actually think it's as much for the solicitor, right? When's the last time you were in a settlement meeting and a practitioner didn't have a file under their arm, right? Yeah. It's like walking down the street with your zip down, if you don't have a physical file. So I think it's as much for the solicitor as it is for the client. I'll give you one step further. What we do is we give access to all of our files to our clients. Not that they spend every week an hour logging in. In fact, less than 5% do. But the point is that we offer transparency. What that says is we hide nothing. It's your file. You can access it at any time. That might be a step too far for some people on this call, but that's where we go to. But I just don't see. I can understand why you want a physical file, but to see. The way I look at it is my physical files, all of my files are on my laptop, and that goes where I go. Okay. And I think the world is moving to a point where people expect your file to be on your laptop. And, when you're talking about data security and data sensitivity, I challenge you to ask yourself how many times you've lost a document, a file, or something very important, compared to how many times you lost a document on a digitized format, like let's say an online case management system.
There's a quick question there about digital signatures, people being physically in the same room. What's your view on that? Can the person be on a video call?
Digitally signing, yeah. Actually, you can be on a video call. Absolutely. Sorry, that is permitted, and like that's I suppose the pandemic has flushed out these practical consequences.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
We're moving into the last 5 minutes, so I'll just move on again. And what makes the document interrogatable after being scanned? So.
Yeah, so it's called OCR, the acronym. OCR basically means that if you scan something now, for instance, on your multifunction photocopier device, what it does is it's only taking a picture of the document. And when you go and open that document on your case management system or on your laptop, subsequent to it being scanned, and you search a word or you go to copy text from that, you can't do that. OCRing means that actually it's not just a photograph, it's a replication of that physical document in digital form. So if you're searching the word Fenlon in 10,000 documents you have in your system, just type in the word Fenlon, all the documents of Fenlon come up. It's a great way to short circuit trying to find something. And I think that's half of our battle as practitioners. If we don't have a sort of coherent system and file management and case management system, you can spend ages looking for things. Like certainly, I remember the last practice I worked in, it was not today or yesterday, right? But there was a time when documents were ritually lost and you had to leave a memo on people's desks. It's like 40 desks in the office. Have you seen this document or this file? And this happened on a weekly basis. It just doesn't happen once you digitize. And I think finding things, when the client rings up, you don't say, here, I'll have to call you back when they open up the file and try and lift it out of the cabinet and spiky bits are stuck in the cabinet, you can't lift it out. All that's gone. The accessibility to information becomes phenomenal. It also means mobility. Wherever you want to work actually becomes your office as well in real terms.
So Larry, in the final few minutes, just summarize, what do you think these just look into the future again, new roles, new trends, the future of law, if you could help people.
This is not to bamboozle people, but I actually do think it's certainly happening out there. So new or alt law it's a sort of phenomenon where your office is never closed because it's online. You may have practitioners working in different parts of the country outside of Ireland who can work at different hours to you. You'll outsource a lot of stuff that you can't do efficiently. E-discovery is classically one of those issues. Research might be another issue. A legal process outsourcing is going to happen. And I think the roles are going to change. The licensed conveyancer is one of those, but let me give you a few new ones where, you might have the legal project manager, the legal processor, the legal design solutions architect, these sort of waffly names, but they're coming, okay? So the idea of having to be a solicitor to do law, believe it or not, is going to be chipped away at consistently a year onwards.
I've heard that the data scientist meets the software programmer and with the entrepreneur that sits on top, that they will go hell for leather around this process.
Well, I don't think it's going to be in every firm, but I'd say this to you, that like data and what you can do with your data becomes very, very important. Have you heard data is the new gold? You go, how does that apply to me? But look, let's say you had 3,000 historical files and you worked out how much you were spending on each file time-wise, how much you were charging. It would certainly give it an immediate indication of whether you were making a profit or not, and how you should adjust your price or adjust the type of work you're doing. So I think that sort of data centricity of your business, if you're going to build a case management system, make sure that you can gather core, what I would call business financial information from it, so that you can work out, is this a business or is it something else? Because the pursuit of business is to make profit. And I think that's probably where none of us delve into very often. So that data centricity, it becomes very, very important. But look, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's there to terrify solicitors as to where the world is going. The world's being eroded. It's not. I mean, at the end of the day, you're still going to need a solicitor. How many times have you rang up, as I said in the article, a bank, and you're bloody put on hold for 55 minutes in your consumer capacity, and then you're given 10 options, none of which you want, and all you want to do is talk to another human. Like, humans need humans, and the reason why we are an important profession is because people come to us to resolve their problems. Quite often they'll come to us before they go to the guards or before they go to any family members. We're here to resolve problems. But that'll never change. And that's why I think the profession is, it really has a very rosy future rather than some pessimistic future. It just means we adapt a little bit, little by little. And I'm not saying that you need seismic change in your practices, but I think what you need is an overview. Look, if I'm going to prepare and future-proof my business, maybe for the next generation or for the people coming up or for myself, I need to have a plan and action. And if I don't have the skill set to do that plan, I need to get someone else who does have that skill set and unburden you from that and give you a plan that you can follow. That's not rocket science. That's not, it requires some degree in data, technology. So it's very doable, is the point, Justin.
So we're just out of time there, Larry. I don't know whether you want to just take the last few questions. You can pass on them if you want.
No, go on. No, let's do it.
Is there a particular software big firms are using for discovery?
Okay, so the e-discovery so Microsoft have an e-discovery tool. That's the first thing you need to know, okay? And we would use that for smaller jobs. For larger jobs, we would outsource it to, there's not a week goes by, there's not an e-discovery provider from the UK knocking on our door wanting to meet us. There's about 20 to 25 of them out there. And it's an area that we've lost in law, right? And for the life of me, I can't understand it, okay? Because what e-discovery does, if you think about it, is it takes all of the data or documents, it has them digitized, and there's word searches done in date ranges against certain agreed terms, okay? And then they distill those down from 100,000 documents to 30 or 20,000 documents. That's the e-discovery provider's job. The next job is to review the bloody thing. That still requires human input. You can either outsource that input or you can insource it. So, e-discovery is now turned into some term that practitioners are terrified of, that we can't possibly do it. You can do it. We're insourcing it. We stopped outsourcing it because of the cost of it. So that's something we can give you advice in due course. Listen,
Larry, we're out of time. Last question. How many screens have you got in front of you is one of the questions.
I have one at the moment. Well, two, but we usually have three at my desk. But you can get these now bendy screens if you want to feel all matrixy. You can do that and use your fingers to move things around.
Listen, Larry, you've been a great sport today. Thanks for joining us. I really appreciate your insights, unique insights into how the business. So they can get in contact with you at Lex Tech or at Lehman Solicitors.
Yep, indeed. Thanks, Justin. Anytime. Thanks.
Bye. Hopefully we'll see you all next week.